Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Box Office Talk. This is the show where I break down what happened at the box office, see if my predictions for the top 5 are correct, then make predictions for next week's top 5. So let's get right on into it. Last week, I predicted the number 1 would be Challengers, number 2 would be Unsung Hero, number 3 would be Boy Kills World, number 4 would be Civil War, and number 5 would be Abigail. And I surprisingly got 4 out of 5 of my predictions right. There was one movie that I predicted in here that I did not get right, and I thought, oh, that's going to fuck up the whole thing, but it kind of didn't, actually. Unfortunately, nobody else got their predictions right for this weekend, so better luck next time. I will, as far as next week goes, I do want to give a quick little announcement really quick, just because I know some people will probably not stay tuned all the way to the end. So let me just get it out of the way now. Since I will be traveling for my sister's graduation next weekend, Box Office Talk will probably be delayed either Monday night at the very latest Tuesday. So I will be busy that weekend, so I'll still be, recording the numbers. I'm not going to be slacking on, that part of the job. It's just actually getting the video out there. So with that said, now that you guys know, let's just dive into what happened in the overall top 10. Number 1 was actually Challengers, which was very cool to see. Even though it isn't like a really big debut or anything, it was still kind of a relief, like, okay, it's not just the same movie that we have been getting. This movie didn't make like single digit millions, it got to number 1 for an original film that is rated R, and it's more of a romance drama than like a thriller or anything like that, with actors who, Zendaya's been in some big movies, but I don't think you can really say she's been like the main selling point, you know what I mean? Like, she's had she's been involved in ensembles like with Dune or the Spider-Man films or The Greatest Showman even. This is like her first time like actually kind of leading one with 2 other actors who haven't led either. So it's kind of a win, and at the very least, maybe with some strong word of mouth, some good staying power, we could see this movie really doing well. It does have a production budget of $55 million to work with, so when I say these numbers, they're not going to sound great right away, but it's the principle of the thing. It got to number 1 at the very least, and also, maybe we can get some word of mouth going and maybe get more people to see it next weekend. That might be difficult because of the movies coming out. We'll talk about that later. But this movie did make $15 million this weekend. This is the highest opening weekend for director Luca Guadagnino. Pretty easy to do since a lot of his other films have opened in limited release, and even when they did go wide, it wasn't like these huge numbers or anything. And then as far as his filmography, it has outgrossed Bones and All by $8 million domestically, A Bigger Splash by $13 million, and Suspiria by that same amount. It now needs $3 million until it outgrosses the entire domestic run of Call Me By Your Name. So at the very least, this is going to be his highest grossing film easily, and the same is kind of for worldwide. It is sitting at $25 million, so it's already outgrossed Bones and All by 11, Suspiria by $17 million, and A Bigger Splash by $20 million, and needs $16 million now until it outgrosses Call Me By Your Name. So yeah, it's shaping up to be Luca Guadagnino's biggest film, and since he is, going to continue to make movies, he's got one with Daniel Craig coming out next. I don't know if it's this year or next year, but I think the fact that you can put that in a trailer now, like, Luca Guadagnino, the director of Challengers, and more people will be like, oh yeah, I saw that, you know what I mean, as opposed to some of the other ones. Not that he hasn't been well known in like the film community, but as far as like, Challengers making more money than the other ones, his name will probably be more recognized and associated with, popularity now, if that makes any sense. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see if this does have a significant enough hold where it could potentially double this $55 million budget. I'm not sure as of right now, and like I said, we'll talk about what's coming out next weekend where that might be a little tricky. But hey, a win's a win, I guess. To take what you can get in these dark box office times where original films can't really get number 1 like they used to. Although I will say, with Civil War last weekend and the week before, like being at number 1 twice in a row, and then Challengers being the one that follows it up, it's not like, oh, it all dipped in Godzilla x Kong, became number 1 again just because of the hold. It was like, no, another original film took the spot, which is very good. Number 2, we have Unsung Hero. I knew it. I knew I should not sleep on the film that maybe not many people know was coming out, but I knew it would have some kind of audience. Made $7.7 million this weekend on a production budget of $6 million. So despite the fact that it doesn't have a worldwide total right now, the fact that the budget is $6 million and they've made a little over that on their opening weekend, yeah, that's pretty good. As far as the film company, the Kingdom Story Company, I think is the name, that's the production company or something like that. They've done a couple other faith-based kind of films. I did look at some of those stats. As far as the opening weekends, it had $7 million over their documentary The Jesus Music, $2 million over American Underdog that Zachary Levi based on a true story football movie, and 1 million over Ordinary Angels, which came out like a month or two ago. It is 8 million below Jesus Revolution and 2 million below I Still Believe, but so it's kind of looking like this movie, as far as their company, it's kind of smack dab in the middle, a little more on the higher end, so that's good for them. It has already outgrossed the Jesus music by 6 million and now needs 3 million until it outgrosses I Still Believe. So there you go, some stats. I have no stake in this movie doing well or anything like that. It's looking like it probably, even with the competition coming out, the budget is so low and they've had a strong weekend here that it'll probably be fine. Ordinary Angels was interesting because it had like a pretty low budget, all things considered, but then it just didn't have that kind of box office attention there. I think the thing also with that was like they marketed that so early, and then when they pushed it back, I think because of strike related reasons, people were like, I'm assuming people were just kind of like, didn't that already come out? I don't know. Anyways, let's move on to number 3, which is Godzilla and Kong, The New Empire, making $7.2 million. So yeah, like I was saying, it wasn't Godzilla and Kong that took number 1 again, but, it did get into the number 3 spot, which I predicted for Boy Kills World. And you will notice that since I got 4 out of 5 of my predictions right, Boy Kills World didn't shift down to number 4. So we'll talk about that a little later. That adds to a domestic total of $181 million for this film. It's $19 million away from outgrossing 2014 Godzilla. Worldwide, it is sitting at $519 million, so $10 million away from outgrossing that film. But more importantly, it has crossed the $500 million point, which is very good for any kind of blockbuster, especially one that costs $135 million. That is significantly lower than some other films that will get to $500 million, but not kind of push it anymore, but they cost like $200 million or $250 million. So good on you, Godzilla and Kong. I don't really have much more to add to this. That's how well this movie is doing. Once it gets to $540 million, which is 21 million away, it will quadruple that initial production budget. So like I said, it's good to be doing well, Number 4 was Civil War, making 7.0 million, adding to a domestic total of 56 million for A24's domestic filmography. It has outgrossed Talk to Me and Lady Bird by 8 million and Uncut Gems by 6 million. So not only is it now the number 2 highest grossing domestic run for A24, but it is sitting behind Everything Everywhere All at Once by 21 million. Now, who knows if it will have that kind of run? I mean, at this point, anything is possible. We might be seeing Civil War beat the Best Picture A24 winner, which is fascinating to say the least, domestically at least. Worldwide, it is sitting at 67 million, so they're still about 33 million off from actually doubling this $50 million budget, but for their worldwide runs, it is 17 million over Uncut Gems, 13 million over The Whale, and 3 million over Moonlight. It now needs 13 million until it outgrosses Lady Bird, but right now where it's at, it is in the top 5 highest worldwide runs for A24, so who'd have thunk the controversial film would be doing this well? I've already kind of, beaten that dead horse with these other videos talking about that, but it's still kind of shocking to me. It's about to beat the Best Picture winner, Everything Everywhere All at Once. That's kind of crazy. I think Everything Everywhere is a better movie, but that's besides the point, obviously. I'm glad that A24 at least has, some other support, even if technically they have not doubled this budget yet, I guess you could say I'm still seeing this movie, kind of ending its run in a place where they're fine, but Everything Everywhere's budget, that was lower than this, and they, made so much money that you could say that was more financially successful in the end. But still, it's good for them to keep racking in some high numbers. At number 5 is Abigail, not dropping too terribly. Well, okay, so like it opened with like 11 million last weekend, so dropping to like 5 is like, yeah, that's about half, maybe a little under, but it's just such a bummer. This is such a good movie, and I was hoping it would have a better hold, but people are still antsing to see Godzilla and Kong more than some of these other movies. But it made $5 million this weekend, adding to a domestic total of $18 million. For Radio Silence's filmography, it has outgrossed Devil's Due by $3 million and now needs $10 million until it outgrosses the domestic run for Ready or Not. Worldwide, and since it is sitting at $28 million, it will need $8 million more until it outgrosses the worldwide run for Devil's Due. So yeah, and that's not even to mention, it's not even, close to doubling that $28 million budget yet. Still, look, they have at the very least crossed over the initial point of that. We just need it to double it, and at that point, you know, hopefully they're in some kind of clear there. You know what I mean? Man, it's just so much of a bummer. I was really hoping this would be like a big surprise horror hit before the summer kicked in, but I guess not, you know? Good luck to Tarot next week. Does anyone remember that one's coming out? Anyways, let's move on to number 6, which is The Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare, which made $3.8 million this weekend, adding to a domestic total of $15 million. And I wish I could say that this movie really rose up in the Guy Ritchie charts and I could give you some interesting stats, but nope, it is still not outgrossed the next film it needed to last weekend, which would be The Covenant. It is now behind that by $1 million. So there you go, man. Like, another dud, you know. Last weekend was the weekend of duds, you know, and I guess you could say Abigail's doing better, and Abigail was cheaper in comparison to the budget of Ungentlemanly Warfare, but still, man, crazy. None of these movies, man. People, like I said, people want to see more of Godzilla and Kong compared to these other ones, and Civil War, which is, you know, fascinating to me, you know what I mean? I would never have expected, well, with Godzilla and Kong, I thought when it kind of dipped the next weekend, because I remember that happening. It had a little bit of a dip, but it was still number one. So I kind of thought, like, okay, it's going to die off a little bit, but no, people have been really wanting to see this. And then Civil War, like I've been saying with the controversy bit, but no, people, I don't know. You can't predict people. Number 7 is Kung Fu Panda 4, making $3.5 million, adding to a domestic total of $184 million. Needs $31 million until it outgrosses the original film domestically. But worldwide, what we've been beating the drum for it to finally outgross one of the other films worldwide, technically still hasn't happened yet. But now that it's sitting at $503 million worldwide, so $500 million, they are also at $3 million away from outgrossing the third film worldwide. So finally, we will see this movie outgross one of the sequels worldwide. It feels like it was a long time coming. Domestic practically, you know, blew right through the other two. So it's fine. What a relief that next weekend we'll probably be able to report that it's outgrossed something. Good job, everyone. At number 8, we have Ghostbusters Frozen Empire. This one also, okay, let's just talk about it. Making $3.2 million, adding to a domestic total of $107 million. Still $5 million away till it outgrosses Ghostbusters 2 next weekend. If it's still here, you know, we might be able to talk about it actually doing that worldwide, since it is sitting at $187 million. Not only does that place it $16 million away from Ghostbusters Afterlife, but it is now $13 million away, a little closer in this one, $13 million away from finally doubling its $100 million initial production budget. It's been a long time coming. It's been quite literally a month, really, since a month and a week, pretty much, since it's been released in theaters, and it's made that slow crawl to potentially doubling this budget. And yeah, you know, like I said, I'm not even sure if it's even going to be here next weekend, because we have, you know, 3 potential movies coming out to get into the top 10, but we'll see. If it does manage to do so when it's out of the top 10, I can't talk about it, but congrats. But if they don't, then good luck with the next one, I guess. Number 9 is Dune Part 2, making $1.9 million, adding to a domestic total of $279 million. Worldwide, it is sitting at $704 million. So there you go, crossing the $700 million milestone. Congrats to Dune 2. like I've been saying with Dune, it's kind of hard to keep talking about this movie because it's already, you know, cleared out the competition and the other like stats that it needs to, and all these other records. So, you know, it is kind of interesting that now that the summer season is literally kind of starting next weekend, first weekend of May is kind of where I start the summer, where most people start the summer. So it's kind of interesting that one of the biggest films, one of the biggest blockbusters, is going to be gone kind of in the top 10 when we get to that point. But, you know, it had its springtime. Finally closing out the video, number 10, Boy Kills World. I was too optimistic for this one, obviously. Not only did it not even make it into the top 5, it's literally just barely squeaking in at number 10 here, making $1.6 million. There's no worldwide total to bump it up, and there's no production budget that I could find to see where it's at. You know, is it, well, obviously with 1.6 million, I guess it doesn't really matter, because it's kind of like, yeah, this is a bit of a flop in it. Yeah, womp womp. Yeah, so ending the video on a bit of a bummer, but hey, Summer season starts next weekend, so now it's time for the fun part, the predictions for next week's top 5. Number 1, I think, will be The Fall Guy. I'm pretty confident that that will be number 1. You know, David Leitch had a pretty good hit with Bullet Train a couple years ago. I think The Fall Guy could potentially, you know, be an even bigger one. You know, they've been really pumping out the marketing for this thing. Ryan Gosling has had a huge wave of popularity. He's always been popular, but an even bigger wave now because of just him, you know, performing at the Oscars, doing all these interviews for The Fall Guy, being funny, and, you know, just people loving him from Barbie. So I think potentially we could be seeing an even bigger hit for David Leitch and a good solid kickoff for the summer. Number 2, I think, will be the Star Wars Phantom Menace re-release. You know, I checked like the Fandango, check the seats thing, and it looks like some people are filling them out for the weekend. I don't think this will be like biggest numbers you've ever seen, but I do think it will be big enough to potentially rival The Fall Guy, maybe fall a little bit below that, since The Fall Guy is newer and Star Wars Phantom Menace has been out forever. I think number 3 will then be Tarot. Once again, if anyone remembers what that is, that it's coming out. Then number 4, I think, will be Challengers, and then number 5, Unsung Hero. But what are your predictions for next week's top 5? Leave them in the comments below. And as always, thank you guys for watching. Make sure to subscribe. I'm Jackson Fulcher. See you guys next time.